Hey friends, Elizabeth here from Plant-Based Bride, back again with another video. Today I'm going to share with you my May setup in my bullet journal. I hope you like it, but before we jump into the planning, I want to take a moment to talk to you about today's video sponsor, Function of Beauty. Now, y'all know if you've been around here that I love Function of Beauty. I've been using their products for over a year now. My hair is so much softer, shinier, and easier to manage since I started using Function of Beauty. My hair used to get tangled so easily. All my fine-haired people out there, you know the struggle. But my hair is significantly easier to comb through and brush through since I've been using Function of Beauty. I don't know what's in the bottles. It must be pixie dust or something, but whatever it is, I'm grateful it exists. Your hair is unique and your hair care should be too. Talking about my hair specifically, I have very fine hair and it's naturally pin straight. I dye it regularly, so the ends tend to be a little damaged and be prone to split ends. I also have a bit more of an oily scalp, but because my hair is so long, the ends tend to be dry. So I have a lot of specific needs for my hair, and I love that through Function of Beauty, I can do a quiz and get custom formulas that are made specifically for my needs and goals. When you're doing the quiz, you have the chance to pick your 5 main hair goals. So my hair goals right now are deep conditioning for my ends, oil control for my scalp, fixing split ends, color protection, and shine. Because I have such a sensitive scalp, I choose to go fragrance and dye free, and I love that that's an option. But there are so many fun options to customize not only the performance of your Function of Beauty products, but also how they look and smell. I also love seeing my name on the bottles, Function of Elizabeth. There's just a nice ring to it. Because we're just coming out of winter here and my ends tend to really suffer in the winter and get super dry, my main focus right now is as much hydration as possible, as much deep conditioning for my ends. And that's why I've been using Function of Beauty's leave-in conditioner along with my custom shampoo and conditioner every time I wash. What I love best about this leave-in conditioner is while there's a noticeable difference in the shininess and silkiness of my hair when I use it, it doesn't weigh my hair down. Because as I mentioned, my hair is super fine, so if the ends are too weighed down by a heavy leave-in conditioner, then my hair gets super heavy and flat and almost gets a weird wet look where it never fully dries. And I've never had that problem with this leave-in conditioner, so far this is a must in my routine. I love that Function of Beauty recognizes that each person's hair is entirely unique to them. They don't expect someone like me to get great results out of the same products as someone with super curly hair naturally or thick hair naturally, because our hair is not the same and doesn't need the same thing. It seems so simple when you talk about it that way, but for almost my entire life, I used hair care that was not at all specific to my hair and needs, and the difference is honestly mind-blowing switching to something that is made to the T to my specifications. I love that Function of Beauty's products are 100% vegan and cruelty-free and also free of toxic ingredients, GMOs, parabens, or sulfates. Because Function of Beauty is sponsoring this video, you can get 20% off your first set by clicking the link in the description. We all deserve happy hair, and my hair has never been happier than it is using Function of Beauty. Again, click the link in my description box to get 20% off your first set. Thank you so much to Function of Beauty for sponsoring this video, and now, without further ado, let's jump into the planning. Okay, so let's get started here. As you can see, I have some Kraft paper here pre-ripped and washi taped in. This Kraft paper is just from a giant roll of Kraft paper that I purchased. I'll link it down below in the description box, along with all of the supplies I use in this video, as I always do. And I'm just using a good old glue stick to glue this down into my bullet journal. I decided it would probably be easier to go through each spread and glue down all the Kraft paper to start. So that's what I'm doing. I'm now flipping to the next spread where I again have some Kraft paper that has been pre-ripped and sort of placed the way I want it. And again, I'm just gluing it down here. Something that I did that really helped with getting a nice flat finish without any pulling or buckling was to fold the Kraft paper ahead of time and to make sure to be very conscientious of lining up that fold in the Kraft paper with the page break as perfectly as I could. Doing this ahead of time made it so much easier to flip the pages once the Kraft paper was glued in. Now that that second piece is glued in, I'm going to flip to the very last spread of this setup and do the same thing. I have my last piece prepped here, and again, I'm just going to glue it down, gluing one side down, lining up that fold to the page break, getting it nice and flat, and then gluing the other side down. Flipping all the way back to the front cover, I'm ready to get started. As you know, since you already saw the thumbnail and the little sneak peek at the beginning, my theme for May is daisies, and I really wanted to do a floral theme so that I could tie together my themes from April and May. April, of course, was a rain theme, an abstract rain theme, and I was inspired by the classic phrase, April showers bring May flowers. So I really wanted to do a floral theme for May to kind of tie that whole thing together. So I'm starting by popping down the paint for the center of the flowers on both the quote page and the cover page and letting those dry. And while they dry, I'm going in to do the lettering. And for the lettering, I'm using my Art Journal of acrylograph in black. This is the finer nib that's available, the 0.7 millimeter. And first on the left side, I'm writing out my quote for the month. This is the only quote page this time around because I have two different spreads that I've never done before in this setup. So I had fewer spots for quote pages, but I feel like this quote is so perfect for this theme that it does just fine on its own. So the quote I chose is, "One day you will look back and see that all along you were blooming," by Morgan Harper Nichols. And this is actually the inspiration for the title of Morgan Harper Nichols' book, which I actually started listening to on audiobook while I was filming this, which was just a perfect little combination. I haven't quite finished it yet, but I will, of course, let you know my thoughts in my next reading wrap-up. I'm also adding the header for the cover page. And now that the center of these flowers are dry, it's time to go in and work on the petals. So a little tip for the petals, I'm using white gouache for this, and I'm trying to use a relatively dry brush because I do want to get a little bit of irregularity and texture to the petals to make them look a little more realistic. I find if my brush is too wet, then you tend to get more of a blob of color that is a consistent finish and shade across, which is awesome for lots of things, but not so awesome for imitating nature, which is full of texture and irregularity. So I picked a paintbrush around the size of the petals I was going to paint, and the technique I used for this was to start with the tip of the brush where I wanted the end of the petal to be with light pressure, and then drag the brush towards the center of the flower while applying more pressure so that the petal would start with a finer point and then widen as it comes in. And then I lift the brush off the page as I come to the center so that the petal tapers in again as it comes in, and you get just the tiniest bit of an overlap over the center to show where the petals are actually connecting into the center of the flower. So starting with light pressure with the tip of the paintbrush where the end of the petal is going to live, dragging it towards the center and pressing down with light pressure to widen the bristles of the brush so that the petal will get wider, and then lift it off as you come to the center so that the petal tapers in again. You'll see me do this many times in this video, so hopefully that's clear for you. You can also adjust the speed in the YouTube video viewer if you want to watch it much slower just to see exactly what I'm doing with my paintbrush. Hopefully it's clear. This was the easiest way for me to paint daisies relatively quickly and to get some nice natural irregularity without having to think too much about the shape of the petals. It allowed me to be a lot more free in the way I was painting, and that actually made it a lot more relaxing than some paintings I choose to do, just because it was so much just allowing myself to go for it, and I had to move more quickly, so I couldn't overthink it, and that's always a good thing for me. Once I finished the petals, I wanted to leave those to dry and move on to the stems. So I'm using a brush with a finer tip to do the stems and the leaves, and also just a couple little blades of grass to give the feeling that these daisies are in a field somewhere. I wanted things to be a little irregular. I didn't want the color to be fully opaque and consistent. I wanted there to be a little bit of texture. I wanted there to be more transparent areas, and that's a pretty easy effect to get when you're painting on craft paper. It does have more texture, and that texture definitely impacts how the paint is going to sit on the page. So that was something that I fully embraced while painting here, and I really liked that sort of irregular feel. Once I finished all the greenery, I went back into the centers and used my mustard yellow just to create more of a dome shape for the centers, especially for the flowers that have petals coming all the way around. I wanted the center to look like it was more three-dimensional and that it was popping up like a little dome. So the petals that are attaching on the side that is away from us would be attaching underneath the dome, and we wouldn't be able to see it from our vantage point, whereas the petals that are in the front of the flower from our perspective are attaching on our side of the flowers, so we can kind of see the little areas where those petals are incorporating into the center of the flower. Hopefully that makes sense, but I really found that this helped the flowers to look more three-dimensional, just adding that curve back in for the center of the flower. The last thing that really helps the flowers to look three-dimensional is to add a highlight on the center. So what you want to do here is choose where the light source is existing. So I've decided in my mind that the sun is in the top right-hand corner. So I want to add that highlight on the top right-hand edge of that center dome, and then sort of fading out as it comes down towards the left corner. So I actually decided to use my gold watercolor for this, since it also has that sort of golden yellow feel, but it's going to catch the light and really give that three-dimensional shine as if the sun is hitting the flowers in that direction. So I used a really small brush and my gold watercolor to paint that top right-hand side of the dome, and then added dots tapering away as it came down. The reason I decided to use dots to taper out that highlight was to try to give a feeling of texture for the center of the flower, to indicate that it is not a solid, smooth dome, but actually has some more dimension, irregularity, texture, again, going for as natural a finish as possible. Once I finished the highlights, it was time to cut this craft paper, make it nice and clean. So I'm cutting the top and bottom just to fit the edge of the page. And then for something different, I've literally never done this before, I decided to cut around the outline of the flowers on the cover page to create a bit of a peekaboo effect, so that from the cover page you can kind of get a hint of the spreads to come. I've seen several people do this. I know Shada Campbell does this a lot, and she is the queen of floral bullet journal themes. So this was sort of my homage to Shada Campbell. Since I already had my scissors out, I decided it was a good time to go through and trim everything else that needed trimming, including my tabs for my weeklies. Yes, of course, I'm doing tabs for my weeklies again. I don't know if I could ever go back to not having tabs. They're just so convenient. I use a B5 size journal, so it's really easy for me to cut just a couple dots in on my pages and still have more than enough space for my weeklies. I've also heard from several of you that even in your A5 size notebooks, you haven't had trouble with creating tabs or doing the faux Dutch door style rolling weekly that I do. So that's awesome to hear, but that's going to depend on you and your preferences and, of course, the size of your notebook. Once I finished trimming all of the craft paper, my tabs, I'm going to flip back to my next spread, which is the monthly calendar. So this time I wanted to keep the calendar just a little simpler, so I decided to just go with horizontal lines instead of doing a full grid. You're also getting a hint here for one of my new spreads I'm trying this month, which is a stress tracker. As I let slip in a past video, my family is moving very soon, and we're moving further than I have ever moved in my life. So there is a little bit of stress. I'm not gonna lie. So I decided I should really be proactive about trying to handle my stress because everything's only gonna get more overwhelming before it gets better. So I decided to include a stress tracker in my bullet journal just to keep myself a little bit more aware, a little more intentional. So if I notice I am very high stress for several days in a row, I can be more mindful of that and take time to try to calm my mind, do things to reduce that stress level, practice self-care, talk to my therapist, take a day off, whatever I need. I wanted to mirror the daisies from the cover page on the calendar, so I'm painting them generally in the same areas that they existed on the cover page, and of course using the same technique. For the stress tracker, I thought it would be really cool to make it look like a giant daisy, so I'm painting a semicircle in the center with that same mustard yellow, and then you can see I'm adding numbers here starting from 0 right next to that semicircle. So this is going to be my 0 to 10 scale of how stressed I am each day. And I actually wanted to ask all of you for your opinion because I'm really on the fence with this. My initial idea was for each day to just add a simple straight white line that extended to the number that represented my stress. So I'd end up with sort of a semicircle of radiating lines. I'll pop in a digital example so you see what I mean. That was my initial idea. But then as I was setting this up, I started to wonder if I should actually try to create petal shapes. So I'll put another digital example on the screen of what I mean. Let me know in the comments down below, is your vote for lines or petals for my stress tracker? Because honestly, I think both would be nice and I just can't decide. So please help me out. Let me know in a comment. Thank you very much. Now it's time to move on to my weeklies and painting my tabs. I thought it would be fun to do my tabs in a gradient of yellow. So using my mustard yellow and then mixing it with varying amounts of white gouache to come up with different shades of yellow for these tabs. I'm also setting up the first weekly just as an example. As always, I am using my rolling weekly. It is my Holy Grail weekly spread. I'll link the video where I explain it in the cards and in the description box, so you can check that out if you are unfamiliar with the method and want to know more. Once I reach the fourth tab, I'm just using the mustard paint on its own. So I actually grabbed a new paint just for the final tab, which was in raw sienna, so I could get a nice rusty orange at the bottom. Flipping to the last spread, this is to be used in conjunction with my stress tracker. So my plan is each day to record the level of my stress on my stress tracker. And if I find that it is high that day and I need to calm myself down, I'm going to flip to this spread where I've written down 5 methods to help me find calm. I've dealt with anxiety for a very long time, and I've definitely learned some ways to cope in all of these years. And honestly, something I've realized is that sometimes the best coping methods are really the most simple and the most straightforward, the ones that might prompt you to roll your eyes when someone suggests it to you, like going for a walk. But honestly, they really, really help. So it's possible that these 5 methods don't work for you at all. And that makes complete sense because we are all so unique in the ways that we experience anxiety, in the things that trigger our anxiety in the first place, and also in the things that we find calming that really bring us peace. So I wouldn't expect these methods to work for everyone, but I do think that they can be a good starting point if you haven't found any coping mechanisms as of yet to help with anxiety. So feel free to use this as a jumping off point if you would like. I would also love to hear more ideas for coping mechanisms for anxiety, stress, ways that you find calm. If you want to leave them in the comments down below, that would be amazing. This video could become a resource for anyone who's feeling overwhelmed and stressed right now. And honestly, I think a lot of us are, so that would be really amazing. On the right side of the spread, I just wanted to paint 2 large daisies. Keep it very simple. Again, this whole spread is just about me finding calm when I am overwhelmed and stressed, so I didn't want it to be too busy. I didn't want too much going on, so I wanted to keep it very minimal. So that's it for my May setup. Those are all the spreads. I will do a final flip through so you can see everything together. I love how the gold highlight turned out on the center of the flowers. I mean, it is known already that I love gold. I love gold watercolor. I love how shiny it is. It just brings me joy. But I especially love it as a highlight to indicate where the sun is hitting these flowers. It makes the spreads feel more alive in a way, and it really gives me the feeling of sitting in a field in spring on a very sunny day, and if that's not calming, I don't know what is. I also really like how this color palette came together. The white, green, mustard yellow, brown craft paper, gold highlights, and those black accents. It just all came together in a really nice way, I think. I also really love how the cutaway on the cover page gives a little sneak peek of what's to come with the following spreads. You can see a hint of the tabs. I might do something like this again. Leave a flower emoji in the comments if you made it all the way to the end of the video so I know you're a real one. Thank you again to Function of Beauty for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to use my link in the description box to get 20% off your first set. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give this video a like. It helps me out in the algorithm. Before I go, I want to take a moment to thank my patrons for their support. Extra special thanks to our newest patrons, Michelle, Stephanie, and Arcana. Welcome to the squad. We are so excited to have you. If you at home want to join the squad, feel free. There's a link in the card and in the description box down below. And with that, I'm going to get going. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you really soon in my next one. Bye, friends.